Greetings, Minecrafters, and welcome to another Minecraft discussion on this glorious day. You can tell by the windows it's a gorgeous, gorgeous sunny day. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I'm really pretty darned excited to have this conversation with you about the survival brain versus the learning brain. So, obviously, or maybe it's not obvious, so I'll say it. Whatever I do on videos is informational only, educational only, not meant to take place of any kind of therapy or anything. I'm a big fan, do it. So today I want to talk about, it's kind of like a snippet because I've done bigger talks at colleges and universities on trauma. This I was just feeling moved to just have kind of a sort of a more basic talk about survival brain, because so many of us reside there, and I think we don't always realize. We can kind of lose track of what it's like to even feel good and to feel peace of mind, because their survival brain is really powerful. Because think about it, we are hardwired for survival. So way back when we were being chased around by raptors and diving into caves and things like that, there were positives to being in survival mode, obviously, and planning out the worst case scenarios and everything, because we needed it just to live back then. Now, we're still in that. It's very, very primal. When, somebody doesn't answer a text right away, or we're left out of the email for the holiday party, even though it was generated by the computer and whatever. And so we often are still in that. So we've got all the external stuff, like the T-Rexes, the 2023 version of the T-Rexes or raptors or whatever, pterodactyls, there you go. And we also create that in our minds. And so it's very important. When I did the trauma thing, I usually have like a big PowerPoint and stuff, which is not my favorite, but if you have a lot of people, you have to. So let's survival brain, and learning brain. So survival brain is always, I use that word very often, going to sort of dominate over like learning brain, because of the obvious. We can't learn, be creative, or grow if we're trying to survive, which is not, when we're diving into a cave being chased by a raptor, we're not thinking, gee, I'd really like to write that, brief short story and chisel it into that rock over there. I mean, we're not in that spot. And so so survival brain, and longer it goes, the more conditioned it gets, right? We talked about this a lot. The brain loves patterns. So the more the survival brain locks into, let's play out the worst case scenario from whatever, trauma I experienced, then it, reinforces until it becomes conditioned. And I'm going to do it now. Define trauma, because trauma is different than big stress. Trauma is when the mind's ability to cope is overridden. And that's why the brain is actually rewired, goes through changes, neurological changes, when there's been some sort of severe trauma going on, and which is different from big stress. Big stress sucks, but it's not necessarily rewiring like trauma is, which is why it tends to take on a life of its own. So I'm going to explain that. So there's the prefrontal cortex, which is where our higher thinking is, right? So as far as judgment, reasoning, decision making, problem solving, a lot of personality stuff is all here. Okay, so not just planning, I want to be a doctor when I grow up, but planning tacos tonight. All that stuff. Again, problem solving, reasoning, judgment. It's the stuff we need to get through every day. The limbic system is tougher to show you because it's kind of in the middle. So it'd be like there and clutching it. And so it kind of be like if the brain were an avocado or a peach, the pit is the limbic system. Okay, so that's the thing. So the limbic system is often referred to as the reptilian brain, which is very, very primal. And it's emotional headquarters. So many of you have probably heard the fight, flight, or freeze response, or hide. You can say that when people are saying it differently now. And the prefrontal cortex is the mammalian brain. It's kind of, if we think of it as more civilized. So what happens when there's trauma different from big stress, okay? When there's an actual trauma that overrides the mind's ability to cope, it's kind of like the cord is cut between the two, because the prefrontal cortex, which is our, sophisticated, civilized, intelligent brain, talks down the limbic system, especially the amygdala, my favorite part of the brain, which is what flips the switch for the threat circuit. So basically, we lose our rationality kind of when we're in that trauma mode. And it doesn't have to be just when trauma is being experienced in this minute, right? Anybody who's experienced trauma which is roughly, you know, high 30s to 40%, because around 40%, give or take a couple percent of adults over the age of 18. It's a lot of people, okay? And obviously what's one person's trauma is not going to be the other person's trauma. We can have 3 siblings in the same, grew up in the same household with an abusive parent or something, and, you know, one may be traumatized, the other 2 may not necessarily. So that's important to remember too. So the whole thing is to, first of all, awareness, is to understand, because I think it helps us be empathetic towards ourselves. You know, maybe you're not aware of the survival brain, and maybe you're not aware of how that works. And you're saying, you know, what's the matter with me? Why can't I do this? Why? It feels like I'm stuck. Well, it feels like you're stuck because you might be stuck. But you're not stuck for things that are your fault. And the brain is just reacting, because that's the knee jerk, right? Is reacting to a threat. So you can't even blame the brain for trying to protect itself, of course. So then what happens is, the more we look for the worst case scenarios and the what if this and the what if that and the what if, that's all, the brain does it on purpose because it's trying to prevent the next time. And if there's a next time to this, man, I'm going to be prepared, okay? So that just like pattern, rehearse. The more we rehearse anger, the better we get at it. The more we rehearse anxiety, the better we get at it. The more we reverse guilt, regret, shame, all of it, we get better at it. And fear, definitely. Because again, the brain is a conditioning machine and actually conditions itself. So each and every time the brain kind of finds what it's looking for, like we're afraid of this, oh no, what if, and it finds the what if dialogue that we do all the time. It's sort of, it's the same as giving a dog, like not even a biscuit, but like a prime rib. It's like, okay, you did it, yay, way to go, good girl, you know? So it gets stronger. So here's the thing, when we're locked into survival brain, this is so important for educators to know, at all levels, from pre-K on up through college. And at Champlain, we're doing a lot with trauma-informed stuff. Realize that if a student is in survival mode, they're not hearing. They might be smiling at you, nodding at you, but close to nothing, next to nothing is going in. Because when we're in that protect mode, we are not in any kind of place to learn anything new. We can't take in new information because we're trying to survive. Never mind to be creative and all that really good stuff that just flows out of us. Never mind the happiness and the joy, because we are in default mode. Okay, so it's important here to realize that language of the body is feelings. The language of the mind is thoughts. So when we run those thoughts through enough, what if, worst case scenario, what if, eventually the body gets that, like, okay, the body's really intelligent, has like an intelligence of its own in a sense. The body's like, okay, I get this. And the body just sort of becomes addicted, for lack of a better word, to fear, or addicted to anxiety, because at least I'm actually being inspired by Joe Dispenza at this exact moment. I've done talks about this for a long time, but this exact minute, because he says his sort of I'm paraphrasing, definition of addiction is when the body kind of, you know, it takes a life of its own in the body. Like the body's like, I got this. I know what to do. You can fill it in with substances or whatever, but it works with fear and anxiety. So when we have a full-blown panic attack, the body's like, okay, I got this. And what people don't understand is that with all that conditioning, we've got to kind of uncondition all of that junk and get the crap out before we can reprogram to be in a better, healthier place. And it's really important. And so I'm not poo-pooing talk therapy or anything like that. I'm actually a big fan. It's just also important, and actually Joe Dispenza says this too. Behavior doesn't change from insight. Insight's good, but if we want to actually change, we need to get active, get on the field, like get off the bleachers, off the bench, and get on the field. That's just how it works. And roughly about, again, all this conditioning, about 95% of everything we think, feel, and do every day is automatic because it's coming from the vault. And a lot of those emotions are deep in there, because whenever we pull up a memory from the past, this is important to know, there's an emotion tagging along, attached to it, like a barnacle on a dolphin. So when we pull up a memory, or the memory pulls itself up, as happens with trauma survivors, you know, we get infiltrated, right? That emotion's going to tag along with it, which is no big surprise. And people say, I feel like it's happening. Well, because the emotion from then is kind of corroding and corrupting the now. And so, in addition, again, talk therapy is great. Sometimes medication. I'm not saying anything about any of that. These are complementing. The thing is, we got to get in the driver's seat with really deprogramming that emotion and really learning how sit with being uncomfortable. And the thing, or being comfortable with being uncomfortable, is to really, first of all, like, become aware and to realize, okay, I'm, realizing when we're angry, being able to label the emotion and be able to really kind of sit with it with love and kindness and compassion. Because the more we're able to do this, acknowledge. We're not talking about residing in old memories. We're talking about just the emotion. Here it comes again. And then some really good talk back. I'm moving past that now. I am releasing my anger. I am releasing my fear. There are all kinds of meditations out there. And this is another, because I've been listening to him lately. Another Joe Dispenza comment is that there really is no such thing as a bad meditation, because it takes a lot of really deliberate activity to calm down the mind, which calms down the body. The mind's in charge, right? Before the body finally says, okay, I get it. We're not being threatened anymore. And this is really, really important. So, and it goes with the topic of Minecraft, like peas and carrots, because we're about becoming the boss of the brain, right? So the body kind of like, if the mind's the parent and the body's the loving and loved child, loved and loving child, right? The body finally says, okay, I get it. I guess we're not under threat anymore. And we can now open up our heart. We can now open up our heart for all these other things. We can open up to new growth, because here's the thing, we're in survival mode. It's exhausting. There's absolutely no energy left for personal growth or creativity or any kind of expansion, because it's like lockdown mode, right? So when we start to slowly feel this leaving, we're doing a lot of deep breathing, we're doing a lot of calming of the mind and being present in this moment. Because when we are present in this moment, 100%, not 98, when we are present in this moment, there is no room for anxiety, zero. So this takes a lot of work. Just like I do with my students, I'll say, is it simple? Yes. Is it easy? No one said that. And again, the longer that these patterns have been allowed to continue, like a gerbil or a hamster on a wheel, it's going to be a heavier lift to really release that stuff, because the mind and the body want to land on what's familiar. And we even know if what's familiar isn't comfortable, it is actually horribly painful. If that's what's comfortable, that's what's going to continue to land on default until we actively take action to calm it down. And then, wow, let me tell you how much it really, really, really helps to actively do meditations and quieting of the mind. It just helps so much for me. Now you can do the ones with music and guided and all that. Really, it matters to you what's a big fit. For me, I am as you know, I think many of you have been listening. I think my clearest, and I am the calmest when I'm in motion. So for me, the woods, being out in the woods with Giovanni in this serene, especially in the winter, because I'm a winter person, has been so incredibly healing, because the nature again is non-judgmental. So it's not judging. Oh, what's the matter with me? There I go. I'm anxious again. Why can't I beat this? What's the matter with me? So and so's depressed. I can't be thinking those thoughts. What's the matter with me? And here I go again, and all that. It doesn't do any of that. It's just you're in the and it just. So we want to bring that type of non-judgment, which is what mindfulness is, into your living room or wherever it is that where you can quiet your mind and really sit with non-judgment. Whatever thing happened to me, my body's become conditioned to be in panic mode or fear mode or guilt, shame, regret, whatever mode. Definitely fear, it's a biggie, right? And now that's not working for me anymore. And now my prefrontal cortex is back in the driver's seat. It was offline for a while, cut off from the limbic system, so it was having a party, kind of like teenagers in a house with no parents. Woohoo! Emotional headquarters, just throwing everything frightening at us. Well, now the prefrontal cortex is kind of being reconnected with the limbic system and talking it down again with some rationalizing, with the calming, because the limbic system actually doesn't respond to language very well all by itself. So it's very important to do this just being present and the visualization, and often often, I guess it's up to you, the often acoustical music works really well for me. And I'm saying that because you don't want music with words, or I should say I don't want music with words, because it causes cognitive competition. The idea is to become sort of had this ultra awareness and this consciousness, and not to the brain. You don't want the brain processing lyrics. You want to just be fully just aware and in your body as much as possible, as present as possible. And then also for trauma survivors, of course, there's all different types of trauma, because it can be very difficult for a trauma survivor to be in their bodies. And so there's a trauma-informed yoga, which, though I've not done that myself, I have read about it, and I've shown different videos to my students and talked about it. I'm on a team with well-being people, and I'm aware of it. And from what it looks like and sounds like and reads like, is that it can be enormously helpful for helping people get back into their bodies safely and comfortably. So again, none of this is in place of any other type of treatment. I just wanted to have a talk about survival brain versus learning brain, because awareness is huge. And then I think it helps. I'm on an anti-shame campaign, and I think it can really help people to realize when it feels like they're living a life like they're on a runaway train and they don't have control over it, that there's a light at the end. We can regain control of it, and we can, because the neurons that wire together fire together. We can, just like the brain got rewired from the trauma that happened, it can absolutely heal and become, rewired again to fire off different neurons, to build whole new neural networks, to have you come back even stronger. We call that post-traumatic growth. It's turning our wounds into wisdom. And actually, another joke, you must be in my head today for some reason. Like Oprah says, wounds to wisdom. And Joe Dispenza, which she's my favorite. Joe Dispenza would say that wounds are the wisdom without the pain. So they're basically saying the same thing. Then we're just left with like the skeleton, that there's no more meat, there's no more, no more substance to the pain anymore. There's just a skeleton, because we can't just delete memories. They don't just go away like that, right? But there's no more, it has no more power over you. And so understanding survival brain, I think, hopefully has been extremely helpful for you, because it's coming from a very primitive place, and we can overcome it. Awesome. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from my kitchen in Northern Vermont. Have a mindful day.